This is the There Is Another Way podcast from spencerbruce.com. Making life work as a creative. Hi there, boys and girls. Brucey here for this week's There Is Another Way podcast. How are you? How are you all doing? I hope you are all doing well and had yet another fantastic week. The weeks are really rolling by. We're so close to making the year anniversary of the podcast. 52 whole episodes. I can't believe it myself. It only seems like yesterday I started doing this. I can't thank the supporters enough. You guys know who you are because I've spoken to you personally. Thank you so much for supporting the podcast. Thank you for listening. There will be some news about what's going to happen in a future after the year, so watch this space. That will be coming in the next week or two. I've got a few thoughts, but please, again, I do encourage you, if you've got any thoughts, questions, suggestions, you name it, if you can drop me a message on the Facebook group, There Is Another Way podcast, that would be awesome. Love to hear, again, always love to hear your thoughts, suggestions of what the podcast to do, and questions that you have that you think I might be able to answer for you, or at least have a hash at answering for you. News-wise, I've had a relatively productive week, although a lot of the time this week has been dealing with computer issues. I had, a few projects that I've been working on came a bit of a cropper due to annoying computer issues, and it seems, I can't help but think, in this day and age, 2017 going into 2018, some of the same things with computers still happen and drive you up the wall. I mean, there is progress, but we seem to go backwards at the same time, and I know that is a constant thrive for updates and selling updates, and I know a lot of businesses rely on that, like Apple and their built-in obsolescence. I guess this was what it was like when electricity came along, or when the telephone first came along, or when cars first came along. There's quite a period before things settled down and really just worked. And you start to think in this day and age that maybe we need a web 3.0 and a computer 3.0 where things are just, you can buy reliable things which just work. And I know probably for you computer guys, and we're talking about computers here, like Linux is probably an example of that, but that's probably a bit geeky for some people and a bit too kind of hardcore for others. And I sometimes wonder if it's time for just a basic operating system or a new operating system. We're using operating systems that have been around now for 20, 30 years. Wow. Something new coming along with all the understanding and all the knowledge we have now to develop something which is stable and reliable and does all the basic functions that one needs, and creating devices around that rather than this constant, what seems to be constant, bolting things onto old technology. And I suppose that is something that is indicative in a lot of industries, in a lot of places. You could look at the whole of England as an example as that, of where, rather than fix things and do things new, we just bolt on fixes to existing infrastructure until they collapse, and it's a constant cycle rather than just thinking, let's just start again with all the knowledge we have now and do something new. That turned into a bit of a rant. That was unintentional. Dealing with computers this week got me thinking quite a bit about my creative process, and the fact that I've said this time and time again on this podcast, feeling overwhelmed by options. And not just options in terms of what I'm doing creatively, in terms of the software I have and all the possible things I can do, but also feeling that I want to be removed from the box somewhat. And I've noticed a trend in myself, but also in others, of kind of going back to the physical world a little bit, maybe subconsciously. And again, it's something I have mentioned before in the podcast, but it's really evident to me now. I'm feeling like I really want to read books again, physical books. This one is kind of connected, but I really like listening to podcasts and radio shows on my phone. So yes, it's a computing device enabled by the internet, enabled by recording devices on a computer, but actually I want to experience it away from the computer. I want to experience it in the physical world while I'm doing something else. And it seems to, remember a day when, for those of you who are old enough, where you would just listen to the radio as background noise and it would be on, or you would just sit down and read a book and not be distracted by 50 articles and thousands of other things And I suppose it swings and roundabouts. I'm not dissing this because it's the way things have become, and we talked a couple of weeks ago about disruption, but I feel with a book as well, I love reading blogs and I love reading blog posts and articles, but a book is a lot more. And I'm not comparing it to something on like a Kindle, that is an option, but again, I feel you're overloaded then, because you start reading a book and if you don't quite like it in the first 10 pages, you've got 50,000 other books on your Kindle that you can go and read, rather than if you've only got one book, you kind of try and sink your teeth into it and really give it a good go and then maybe give up. But this is also happening in my work, where I work a lot in a music term inside the box, where everything happens inside the computer. All my synthesizers, all my effects processing happens inside the box. And ironically for me, who came from a time period in recording studios where everything was outside the box, everything was in separate units, and unfortunately I sold a lot of my units. Well, fortunately, unfortunately, in hindsight, there were one or two things maybe I should have held on to. But like we've said before, in terms of getting rid of things and minimalizing your life, I'm kind of glad that they didn't fit a purpose in my life. I don't really regret them, maybe one. But you don't know, and it's not the end of the world. I can carry on, and you can buy bits and pieces, newer bits and pieces now. Again, going back to what I first started the podcast with, and things which have improved on the old technology. The point I'm making is I feel now that I want to step away from looking at the computer screen, away from writing music at the computer screen, and do it in the physical world. Use a lot of my outboard equipment and experiment with that. And I feel that resonates more as a creative experience, where you tend to, and I know that a lot of people are guilty of this in the music, where you spend a couple of hours working on an 8-bar idea inside a program you use, Logic in my case, and it never really becomes a song. You're fiddling with it and you're trying to perfect these 8 bars, but you don't have an idea. You only have 8 bars, and then you struggle and you put it away, and then you've got a whole hard drive full of 8-bar ideas. Whereas when I go back to the guitar or sit at a piano or something like that, you try to write in a linear nature. You try to write something that you can play from start to finish. And these concepts are really resonating with me, and I'd really be interested to hear about your creative practices for the creative people out there. But even you could probably apply this to business, where you're writing a document or writing a report, or where you're trying to finesse a paragraph. You're writing something out. Remember again, for those of you who are old enough, the old process, you'd write and write and write and write and write on bits of paper. And then when you'd finish writing and you got to the end, you'd take all those bits of paper and then you'd rewrite, editing as you go along. Whereas now we just edit in situ. We edit a sentence, then we edit again, and then we write a few more sentences, and we go back and we edit, and we edit, and we only end up sometimes with a paragraph, rather than just blatting all the ideas out and developing it from there, going back and refining. So for me personally, this is something I'm really trying to do now, and I'd be interested to hear about your concept. Is it applicable if you're doing photography? Maybe it is. Maybe you take something into Lightroom and you're editing it within an inch of its life, but you're never really committing to anything. Maybe if you're doing film, maybe you're just working on one shot and then you color grade it, and then you edit it and you edit it, and you haven't really got a narrative. You've just got a series of really nice looking shots. Something to think about. So, rambling on there, but I really felt that quite pertinent this week. Discuss this creative process and breaking back into the physical world, working again in the physical world with paper and pens. And also something I've mentioned before is committing to ideas, and something again for you musicians out there might not be applicable to everyone, but I tend to, most people would use something called MIDI, where notes are recording onto a computer, and then you can go in and you can edit them and you can change them about, and it's great, and it's been around since the 80s, and it enables musical instruments to be connected together, and so you can play a piano and play through loads of different synthesizers. But the problem with having MIDI data on your screen is like having all the letters. You can just go in and rearrange and rearrange and rearrange to your heart's content, and your heart is never content. So what I've been doing is a process known as bouncing to audio. If I'm happy with something, I've now started to commit to an idea. So I bounce it down. It becomes audio. It's fixed then. Obviously, I can go back and change it, but it's more of a psychological mindset process. I've converted to something, I've converted it to audio, which you are able to edit, but the idea is committed, and then you work with that. And it really does prevent you keep going back and changing things, is if you're happy enough with an idea, commit it to something. Commit it and then move on. That is my advice, rather than thinking, I could go back and change that later. I could go back, and you just keep going back and tweaking and back and tweaking. This process is very similar back in the day, where the term you might have heard is committing to tape. Practice something through, or you'd do a number of takes, but because tape was really limited, you'd have to pick something and commit it to tape. And once it was committed, that was it. It was done. And then you move on. That is my top tip. Commit to something and then move on. So getting on to this week's topic. This week I really wanted to talk about networking. And I've really struggled with a title. I was going to go with networking for novices, trying to get a nice alliteration in there. Newbie networking or something like that. But I find that kind of patronizing. And obviously I don't want to patronize you. But I know, and I'm speaking for personal experience here, networking is something that we tend to struggle with. I know a lot of people who hate networking, dislike it, just don't know what to do, and uncomfortable. And it is a kind of really strangely constructed situation, which is not normal in everyday life. But it is crucial, and we've talked about this time and time again on the podcast. Building your network is probably the most important thing you're going to do in developing your business. Or if you're escaping the 9-to-5 and you're on a career change, having a network in place that can assist you and help you is the most important thing. And that can be your family and friends, because that is your network. That is your very, very immediate network. And when it comes to networking as a grand concept, I think there is a lot of stuff online that we read that it just doesn't appeal to many people. And to be honest, as creatives as well, and sometimes for startup businesses, you're nervous, you're anxious, don't know how to react in those situations where you're plonked in a room with a number of people who you don't know, and you've got to start making small talk, and it feels uneasy. And then you read all the advice online about how you should be doing this and you should be doing that, and 50,000 tips on how to do X, Y, Z, and what you should do at a networking event. I'm going to say something radical and different. I have been to a lot of networking events. It used to be part of my job, and more recently I've been going because I feel like I should go. I feel like I want to meet people, and I feel like I want to get out and share things. And I remember many, many years ago, I got this advice. And again, I feel a lot of this advice comes from the sharp-suited expert schmoozers. I want to draw a line between smart-suited schmoozers. Wow, that is a mouthful. Try it again. That's a bit of a tongue. Smart-suited schmoozers. Go on, I dare you to try it. You're trying that now in your head, aren't you? Go on. Smart-suited schmoozers. I knew my drama lessons would come in useful 20 years or however many years later. I remember being told that, if you go to a networking event, you need to give out 50 business cards. You need to speak to 50 people. Don't even bother coming back to the office if you've not spoken to 50 people and contacted 50 people. And you can't do that, and it's really awkward. And you also get told, if you're talking to someone and they're boring you or you don't like them and it's not beneficial to you, then leave. Now, we know what this podcast is called. It's called There Is Another Way. And I strongly believe that there is another way. Yes, if someone is boring and you don't like them, don't be rude and just piss off. Try and end the conversation naturally. But don't think about it being beneficial to you all the time. It's not. It's how you can be beneficial to them. Because this person you might not like talking to might know someone who knows someone. And if you're rude to them, then you've kind of burnt that bridges. But also, if you just keep talking about yourself and trying to get something out of the relationship, you probably won't. My approach to networking over the last 4, 5, 6 years is I don't really go there to talk to a lot of people. And I don't really go there to promote myself. I go there with the attitude that I would like to be able to assist people. And that might result in some work, bonus if it does. But it's also, I'm trying ultimately to make alliances, to make friends. Look at it that way. Not business contacts, but friends, and grow my network. And not friends that, you're going to have round for beers all the time and you're your best buddies and you can tell them all your intimate secrets, but colleagues, friends who you're in the same boat. And when you do that, I feel that it takes a lot of the pressure out of these networking events, because you're not going in there, boom, with your elevator pitch and boom with this, and then within 10 seconds, the guy's not really showing interest. So, Mr. Wolf of Wall Street has told you that at that point, piss off. He might be thinking of something else at that point. He might be interested in the canapes. He might be interested in getting a drink, but he might be interested in what you've got to say. You've just got to give relationships times. It takes a while to bed in with someone. It really does. Think about it. Think about your life. Think about the people in your life. You start a friendship with someone, you start a relationship with someone, and I don't mean that in a physical, like a boyfriend, girlfriend, girlfriend, girlfriend situation, or whatever combination you want. I mean that in a kind of, your friends, your acquaintances. You don't start off at a level where you're doing something from. You grow the relationship. My top tip for networking is go to these events. Do go, but be different. Don't be that person, the person who is trying to gain from it. Don't think about it in gain. And I know that the internet is going to slate me for this. I know that the internet is going to tell me I'm wrong. And I know that the internet is going to say, you need to go there and you need to close 50 deals. I'm going to say there is another way. You go there, make 1 or 2 relationships with people. Then you go to another event and you meet the same people. And you've got a bit of a connection which is based outside of a working, selling relationship. And with those people, it might take a week, it might take a year, it might take 2 years. But once you've built a relationship, that's going to last you longer than one deal that you might make with someone at a networking event. I can, if I played devil's advocate myself, I could say, you could build a relationship with someone and you keep working for them. We do things differently here. We're a bit more holistic. We're a bit more touchy-feely friendly. Don't do that at a networking event, by the way, because you will probably get banned. Don't touch anyone. That's my other top tip. Now, I hope you see what I'm saying here. And if you go in with this approach of, I'm not trying to sell, I'm just being me, and I'm going to listen to people, and I'm going to offer my advice and help, it puts you, and I know, well, it certainly puts me in a much more relaxed situation. I feel much more comfortable when I go and talk to strangers, when I can be normal. I'm not going in there going, hi, I'm Neil and I'm a musician. What can I do for you? Oh, you don't want anything from me? Okay, bye. I'm going to go and talk to that guy because you're not interested in me. That's not me at all. And I'm guessing for some of you, that's not you. For those of you who are the smart shooted schmoozers, go for it, knock yourself out. But if you come and talk to me, I'm probably not going to work with you. Look at it that way, because I'll talk to you and engage you, but I'll be put off by that. I want to talk to genuine people who also want to talk not necessarily about work, form a relationship. I go to a lot of maybe musical events and I'm talking with my competition a lot of times, but I don't care. We talk about things we love and we're passionate about, and the business side and all that kind of fades away. And then ultimately, at some point, I might be talking to someone and they go, oh, I need a guitar player. Oh, there was that really cool guy I met and he was really friendly. He was really helpful. He offered me some advice. I'm going to phone him. Yeah, it might not happen in a month. It might happen. But you're there. And the more you meet these people and the more you engage with them, the more you're in their memory and the more you share with them, because you also, it's a symbiotic relationship where you go, oh, there was that guy I met and he was really cool. And we talked about our favourite comedies and we had a laugh and we talked about films that we like. We didn't really talk about music, but he did say a little bit about his studio and he's got this piece of gear and I really wanted to use that. So maybe I'll hire him to play that for me. I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I know that the internet will, that that's a much healthier and longer lasting approach to making a network and building a network. It's the same approach with your friends and family as well. With your friends and family, that's the best network to grow as well, because they are the ones who bump into other people and go, oh yeah, my cousin or my a really good friend of mine who I used to go to, he does that. Why don't you have a word with him? Because we also like, in that sense, personal recommendations. Personal recommendations trump everything, in my opinion. You trust your brother or your best friend or your best friend. We get sucked in with online reviews. In the end, we want someone to justify our decision for us, and we don't want to be responsible for our own decision. But ultimately, the choices we make are through recommendations. And that goes through people you meet at networking events, where you could ask them a question, you get their card perhaps, or you swapped on details, or, more commonly, Facebook is a good way to connect with people, and you remember that person and you go, hey, can you recommend XYZ for me? Or I recommend you because, we chatted and I've seen your work and I think you're great, and it's more friendly and it's more normal and it's more natural. I would encourage you, this whole podcast has been networking for novices. First of all, it is important to network. Number one, you have to grow your network no matter what you're doing. If you're giving up work and you're trying to seek out new forms of employment, if you're trying to change your career, if you're packing it all up and going to live on a tropical island, whatever you're doing, growing your network is quite important. Because think about it in terms of you leaving the 9-to-5 and you've got your pots of passive income coming in and you move to a completely different place. What's going to happen? You're going to feel isolated. So you're going to grow a network, and it's not the same as a business network. It's not the same as a creative network. It's a personal network. And in that sense, you're not going to go to an event, are you? And just, boom, here's I have to meet 50 people and tell them 50 people about my story, and they're all going to be my friends and we're all going to have a great time. No, you grow relationship. And, the same with, you could even say about a dating relationship. You get to know someone, you get to grow with them, and you get to learn about them, and then you get to understand them. So too, relax when you go to a networking event. Do go to networking events for those of you in business, and for those of you on a tropical island. These events could be a social meeting, a gathering of someone with something which has similar interests to you. Maybe you want to take up pottery and you find a local pottery class. That is building your network. And you will feel the same when you go to that. The first time, you're going to feel nervous, you're going to feel anxious. And for a lot of us, we don't want to speak to people. It's breaking the ice, which is the difficult thing. And you read all these books on icebreakers. Again, here comes the internet going to crash down on me and flame me to death. But really, I've struggled with it for years, but there's no better way. At the end of the day, there's no better way than the following tips. First of all, just saying, hi, how are you? Because also realize that the other person you might be talking to is probably in the same situation. They don't want to talk to someone. They're nervous, they're anxious, and they're just waiting for someone to talk to them. So you be that person. And it's not about being a schmoozer or a smart suited schmoozer. It's just, hi, how you doing? Yeah. Or the other thing to do, and this is probably takes some practice, is be engaged in your environment and notice something in the environment where you could spark up a conversation. And the other person might be the person who's only going to give you 10 seconds, but hey, move on. Let them move on. A painting in the room, or the food, or something unique about the room, or even if you're British, the weather, or the journey you had here, or thinking about the event. If you're going to how did you find out about this event? Those kind of questions, just natural questions, and be interested in the person. And I think for a lot of us, particularly for those who are more introverted, I would also, for everyone really, try the Myers-Briggs personality trait type tool. There's loads of them online to find out what kind of personality you are. But if you kind of tend to more towards the introverted side of the spectrum, don't go and ask them a deep personal question, but what do you do? How did you get here? How are you finding it? Are you enjoying the event? Have you been before? Simple questions. It doesn't matter, and people will open up to you more than just standing in a corner waiting for people to talk to you, because that won't happen. So there is an element where you do have to push yourself a little bit. But when you do, you just be natural, be normal, be you, ask questions that you're genuinely interested in. And at the same time, don't push yourself on someone else. People are more liable to connect with you and be interested in you if you help them, or if you offer to assist them. They'll remember that more than the guy who tried to sell them something. Yeah, just be helpful, friendly, and normal. And again, the relationship might not work out. If you really, really think after 5-10 minutes, that this person's not worth, just do make your excuses, but do it politely, not go off and do some blatantly go and speak to someone else or be rude. just go, that's a great conversation. I'm going to pop to the loo. I'm going to go and get something to eat and then move on. Be polite and be genuine and don't worry. The third thing is the contacts you do make, hook up with them afterwards. Do connect with them on Facebook or on Twitter. Just remember, latch onto something they said or asked, and then just send them a little email saying, do you remember you asked about this thing? Well, here's a link to this thing, or here is some advice, or here is XYZ, or you might find this funny, or blah, blah, blah. Build the friendship, build the network. Don't just think of it in terms of getting work out of them. Just think what you can do for them. And I'm sure and I'm positive it will be a much more fruitful relationship, which will garner more in the long term. And with There Is Another Way, we like to think long term rather than short. So build these long founding relationships based on people you like and people you like to be around, because that's the other thing as well. I've kind of skated over this a little bit. We all do the thing thinking about when you met a partner, perhaps. Probably considered a lot of people, but there's only one or two that really you thought, oh yeah, I want to, to hang out with. That's the same with your friends. Think about how many people you've met in your life. How many do you count as friends and colleagues that you rely on? Even people when you're at work, there's certain people you gravitate to and certain people you don't. And the best relationships for business, for creativity, for whatever, are formed with people you get along with. So there are I've rambled on quite a lot here. There are my tips for networking. There's probably a few more out there. I'd love to hear your tips, but just always remember there is another way. Take all the advice online. Be the smart suited schmoozer if that is you, but if that is not you, then don't. But don't be a wilting flower in the corner. Just be you. Just be normal, be genuine, show interest, and try and help people. And you will succeed more at networking at events, on Facebook and Twitter, anywhere, than you will by just trying to do the hard sell all the time. So I hope you find that useful. As always, I'm going to sign out there. I would love to hear your thoughts, feedbacks, and comments. And also, if you fancy it, send over an audio clip of you trying to say smart suited schmoozers. Love to hear your attempts at that. All it's left for me to say is have an awesome, amazing week, and I will catch you later.